True Crime Brewery contains disturbing content related to real-life crimes. Medical information is opinion based on facts of a crime and should not be interpreted as medical advice or treatment. Listener discretion is advised.
Police flooded this Northland neighborhood, officers combing out in search of 10-month-old Lisa Irwin and neighbors praying for her safe return. All along, police said Lisa's parents, Jeremy Irwin and Deborah Bradley, cooperated with police until Thursday night.
They've always been free. They've been cooperative up to this point, but early this evening they decided to stop cooperating with detectives.
Irwin's parents say they last saw the infant safe in her crib Monday night and called 911 at 4 o'clock Tuesday morning. News that they'd stopped talking to police confused neighbors. Toy Finley says she spent the last few days defending Lisa's parents.
I don't get it because as a parent myself, if my child was missing, I would give anything I have. I mean, the police are the ones that are your friends. They're going to help find your child. So at this point, I don't know what to think.
Welcome to True Crime Brewery. I'm Jill.
And I'm Dick. Good evening.
Today's episode is brought to you by Madison Reed, the people who are transforming the way that we're coloring our hair. With beautiful, salon-quality, multi-dimensional hair color delivered to your door on your schedule, this is not your mother's hair color. Join the thousands of women who've fallen in love with Madison Reed and say goodbye to spending hours in the salon. Visit madison-reed.com and get 10% off, plus free shipping on your first color with promo code BREWERY. That's madison-reed.com and promo code BREWERY.
The story of Lisa Irwin, a little baby who went missing when she was just 10 months old, has riveted the nation and left behind many unanswered questions. How does a 10-month-old infant disappear from a crib, never to be seen again? The police have focused on Lisa's parents, although there's plenty of evidence pointing to an abduction. Now, Lisa's mother was drinking heavily that night of her disappearance, and she changed her story with police, which also increased suspicions. During the subsequent investigation, 2 witnesses were discovered who claimed to have seen a man walking down their street with a baby. Police were unable to find and question a man matching the description of one witness, but the other witness claimed that his photo does not match the man they saw. So we have disparate views.
We do, and it's been close to 6 years since Lisa disappeared from her crib in the middle of the night, and it was a cold October night. So what is the current status of the investigation into Lisa's disappearance? We're going to talk about that. Join us at the quiet end as we review Lisa's story, the evidence, and the investigation. It's a complicated story with many characters and opinions. The public has had some harsh criticisms of Lisa's mother. So is this just a case of blaming the mother because someone needs to be held responsible? Or are there some serious inconsistencies in her story? Before we get started, Dick, what have you brought for our thirsty listeners?
I have a world-class beer.
Perfect.
I've been waiting to do a case from Missouri just so I could review this beer.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, nice.
So this is barrel-aged Abraxas, which is brewed by Perennial Artisan Ales in St. Louis. And it's an American double or imperial stout. And I hate to sound boring, because we've done this before. But these are stouts that are inspired by the Russian imperial stout that can be barrel-aged in rye, whiskey, or bourbon barrels. They can be infused with coffee or chocolate. They tend to have a big alcohol hit. Now this particular wine, barrel-aged Abraxas, is an 11% alcohol by volume beer. It's aged 12 months in rye whiskey barrels with cocoa nibs, vanilla beans, ancho chilies, and cinnamon sticks.
That seems like a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, but they work well.
They do, really?
Oh, God. What a wonderful beer.
Okay.
So you're thinking, that's too much. You know, you got some heat, you got some sweet.
It does sound like a lot.
Yeah, but they work so great together.
Well, I'm anxious to try it.
You will. So it's a dark black beer. There's a small kind of burnt-looking brown head. The aroma is bourbon, some cinnamon, some cocoa, and maybe a hint of vanilla. But when you taste it, that's when it really starts to shine. You go through a whole series. You get the cinnamon up front. Boom. Nice spice. then the bourbon, then the chili. Gets a little heat, some chocolate, and a little bit of vanilla tailing off at the end. So this is a big, bold beer. Wonderful.
All right.
Oh, God. So good.
Okay, well, let's get to it. That's a rave review. Okay, Dickie, we've got these delicious beers, and I think we should head down to the quiet end of the bar.
You're going to love this beer.
Yes.
And look who's at the quiet end. It's the bad toupee guy.
Oh, gee, yeah.
I know. And I keep thinking, because I've talked with him, he's a pretty cool guy.
I know, you were hanging out with him one night.
Yeah, I think we should try to set him up.
Oh, no.
What do you mean, oh, no?
Well, I've kind of learned my lesson with the gold chain guy. And to me, this bad toupee is even worse. It's a real deal breaker.
Why? Just because it looks like a dead animal?
Yes, that's why.
Oh.
It just shows such a strong lack of self-awareness.
Yeah, but I think you ladies should look beyond the dead hair and look at the inner person. How's that?
Well, maybe next time you have a beer with him, you could talk to him about getting rid of it.
Well, I could do that. But I think you have to give him a break and see what he's got to say, because he's a really cool guy.
Well, I believe you, he probably is, but there's no way I'm setting a woman up with that in the condition that he's in right now.
Understood.
Okay.
All right, we're going to work on that.
All right, that's our next mission.
We'll report back next time.
Okay. All right, so this nightmare began on the night of October 3rd, 2011. Lisa's father, Jeremy Irwin, he was working late at his job as an electrical contractor, and her mother, Deborah Bradley, was at the family's home in their working-class neighborhood with 10-month-old Lisa and her 2 older brothers.
So were they married?
No.
I mean, they have different last names.
They weren't married. They were engaged.
Okay.
Now, Deborah spent the evening drinking wine outside with a friend, and she initially told authorities that she put Lisa to bed around 10:30 when she went to bed. But then later her account shifted, as she said she may have consumed enough alcohol to black out and couldn't recall the exact time she'd seen her daughter.
And I've heard or read that alcohol intake was a regular thing for her.
Yes.
So I don't know if she drank every day to black out or to be able to sleep or what.
Seems like she drank quite a bit most evenings.
Sounds like it.
Now, when Jeremy came home, it was after 3 a.m. on October 4th, and he found the front door unlocked, some lights on, and Lisa was missing from her bedroom. So he comes in, he goes and looks in the room. He sees that Deborah's in the bed with one of their sons and a kitten, and then he goes to the other room and sees the other son asleep. He goes to check on Lisa, and she's just not in the crib.
No Lisa.
No. He goes in, he wakes up Deborah, and he says, "Where's Lisa? She's not in her crib." So this is when panic sets in.
Right. The parents are searching inside and outside the home. They discover that there's a pushed-in window screen at the front of their one-story home, and they had cell phones that were being charged, missing from their spot on the kitchen counter.
Yeah, so these phones would end up giving police a promising lead. They were able to trace a call from one of the missing phones to the ex-girlfriend of a person of interest, a familiar transient in the area, who later spent a short time in custody, and I believe he's back in custody now. Police also investigated reports of a man seen on foot nearby carrying an infant in this very cold early morning, about 45 degrees, in a t-shirt and diaper.
Yeah, so that's not the appropriate attire.
No, that's not a normal sight to see, and
I mean, it's what, 5 a.m.? Something like that?
earlier.
So it's cold, it's dark. Why would you be lugging a baby around dressed in just a diaper?
Exactly. Well, despite leads that supported an abduction, such as that one, suspicions surrounded Lisa's mother, Deborah, early in the investigation. So Deborah had met her first husband, Sean Bradley, back in high school, and the couple had married soon after high school while she was pregnant with their son. Now, Sean Bradley was in the Army when the couple separated. Deborah and Jeremy actually had Lisa while Deborah was still married to her first husband, Sean. But the two of them were living together with Lisa and each of their sons from their first marriages. So Deborah's son, Michael, was 5 when Lisa disappeared, and Jeremy's son, Blake, was 8 years old. And they called themselves engaged and said they were planning to get married, so they seemed pretty much like a normal, happy, blended family.
They did. Now, after Lisa's case reached the media, friends from Deborah's past had unflattering things to say about her, although none of them believed she was capable of killing her daughter. But the people that the police talked with weren't real cool with Deborah. There were rumors of Deborah sleeping with the husbands of fellow Army wives in her community, and she also liked to go out and have a good time and drink. But no one claimed that alcohol was a big problem in her life. She had no history of DUI, and she is a generally attentive mother. Although it sounds like she liked to have some drinks in the evening to help her sleep.
Well, I don't know if that was the motivation to help her sleep, but she did like to drink at night.
Yeah, so,
And I can
so that raises some flags, doesn't it, in terms of alcohol intake?
Well, it does raise some flags, but, I mean, is there really anything wrong with getting your kids to bed and having some drinks? Maybe she had too many, but it doesn't make her necessarily a bad person that she got drunk.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't look good.
But it reflects poorly on her.
It does, yeah. Well, an ex-friend from when Deborah was married to Sean had told the media that she believed Deborah was an alcoholic. And Deborah would concede that she drank to excess most nights. So Jeremy, he's described by people who knew him well as an all-around good guy. He'd been raising his son on his own since Blake was 2 years old. Now, his son's biological mom hadn't seen Blake since he was 2, and Jeremy had been the primary caretaker of Blake since he was an infant. Jeremy was an electrician who worked hard to support his family. He and Deborah were struggling financially, though.
Yeah, it sounds like a little difficulty. I mean, Deborah doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
And Jeremy's working 1 or 2 jobs, or a job and some moonlighting stuff.
Yeah, it was just extra for the same job.
Yeah.
But I don't think he was a master electrician or anything,
No.
so I don't think he was earning a lot yet.
No, I think they were struggling, as you say.
They were. So I think at this point maybe we should go into the timeline and then we can talk more about it. So let's do the timeline leading up to Lisa's disappearance, and let's start early on the day of October 3rd, just to have a complete picture.
Okay.
So Monday, October 3rd at 1 p.m. So as Mary H., a neighbor, is going to run errands, she lives around the corner from the Irwin home. She saw John Tanko, and his nickname was Jersey, turning on sprinklers in the yard of her next-door neighbor who was out of town. So he was looking after the house.
So he's tending the house.
Yes.
Because he's kind of a transient guy.
Yes, but he seemed friendly, and he did do this kind of stuff. He was a shady character to most people in the neighborhood, but he did these odd jobs in the Northland neighborhood. Neighbors accused Jeremy of committing thefts and other petty crimes in the area, though. So he was basically homeless, but he squatted in vacant apartments or homes when people were on vacation, things like that. So police questioned him about Lisa's disappearance, and he reportedly cooperated with investigators. But ultimately, police said they moved on from Jersey as a suspect. He cooperated with us, and we are satisfied with what he told us, said Captain Steve Young, a spokesman for the Kansas City Police Department.
Yeah, now, we don't know the whole structure of that.
No, the police haven't really shared what they discussed with him and what they came up with.
But they're satisfied that he couldn't have been the perpetrator.
Well, they must be for now because they're not pursuing him.
Right. So, sometime early in the afternoon, the family's cell phones were cut off due to non-payment, and they could only receive incoming calls and incoming texts. So that could be something important, because
Yes.
they couldn't call out.
Right. Now, Mary H.'s neighbor had seen Jersey walk away with Mary's dog earlier that day, and the dog turned up several miles away a few days later. So that's an odd thing to think about with Jersey.
It is. So why did he take the dog? Who knows?
We don't know. At 2:30 p.m., Jeremy arrived home from his work, but he would have to return later to work overtime on an electrical job at Starbucks. At 4:30 p.m., Deborah and her brother went to a supermarket, and they're seen on surveillance video purchasing baby food, baby wipes, and a box of wine. Jeremy stayed home with the children while they were shopping. Stephanie, a friend of Deborah, stopped by the house during this time, and she did see Lisa alive and well in her crib at 4:30.
At 4:30. At 4:52, Deborah and her brother left the supermarket, and at 5 p.m. they returned home from the supermarket. So, quick trip.
Yep, so at 5:15, Jeremy's boss called him to talk about a business question, and while she was on the phone with him, she heard Lisa and the kids in the background. So this is further evidence that Lisa was alive at 5:15 that day.
At that point,
Yes.
anyway.
Yes, exactly.
And at 5:30, Deborah's brother left the Irwin home. Deborah prepared dinner for herself, her children, her friend next door, Samantha, and Samantha's daughter. Jeremy returned to work overtime as an electrician at a Starbucks. He said he told Deborah they would be home by around 10. Jeremy's boss said that he and Jeremy were unaware of how long they would be working, but he expected to be finished around 11. Took way longer than they thought, and Jeremy was seen on surveillance footage working until 3:30, and then he left the Starbucks to return home.
Yeah, so there was a little tension between Deborah and Jeremy, I believe, about finances.
There were financial problems, yeah.
Yeah, and he didn't really think she was that responsible with money. So, at some time that day, Deborah had taken in a stray kitten, which annoyed him.
Yeah, just what we need.
Right, exactly.
We can't make ends meet, and you need a cat.
Right. And then she'd left the lights on and the door open, so he was annoyed with her. And he hasn't said so, but I bet he was a little bit annoyed that she got drunk, too.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
And they're still together, so I don't think he's blaming her. But I'm sure he was annoyed by it. Why wouldn't he be? Because he's out working till the middle of the night.
He's working 2 shifts, basically.
Exactly.
Working his ass off, and his wife's sitting home drinking wine and getting lit.
Yeah, so I'm sure that didn't go over super well.
No, I'm sure there's some resentment there.
Yeah.
And then you added on to that, your baby disappeared.
Well, yeah, I'm sure that went beyond resentment. But they did stick together. So it was at 6:40 p.m. when Deborah says she got Lisa ready for bed and placed her in her crib. Deborah checked on Lisa again a few minutes later, finding her standing in the crib, and then she tucked her back in. So Deborah and Samantha, they've got the baby tucked in, and Samantha's daughter's watching a movie with Lisa's 2 brothers, Blake and Michael. So Deborah and Samantha think, well, this is our time. We can chat and take it easy. Everybody's settled in, so they start drinking wine and smoking cigarettes and hanging out on the front porch. This is something they did to relax.
Yeah. Now, I'm thinking it's October, right?
Yeah, it's chilly.
And it was chilly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they were smoking, so.
I don't know if that really keeps you warm, but they probably had to be outside if they wanted to smoke.
Yeah.
They probably weren't smoking in the house, that was good. That was good judgment.
It was. Good for the kids.
Exactly.
So somewhere around 8 o'clock, a kid named Shane was on his grandmother's front porch, which was 2 doors down from the Irwin home. He's smoking a cigarette. Shane had been staying with his grandma for a short period of time. Deborah and Samantha called him over to chat. Sure.
Yeah.
Why are you hanging out there? Come on over.
He's a young man. I mean, you say kid, but you mean like a young man.
I did say kid.
That's okay. To me, anyone under 30 is a kid, pretty much.
Now, Shane went over. He'd never met these women before. Talked to them for about an hour and a half. He said while he was there, he didn't see them actually pouring alcohol into the cups, but he can tell that they had been drinking. They're having fun. They're a little loud, so it sounds like they're a little lit.
A little bit, yeah. Well, I guess they got more than a little bit as time went on.
Well, this is early.
But Shane's not drinking.
No, he's not. And he didn't see Lisa or any of the other children during his time over at the house.
No, they're inside.
So around 9:30, Shane returned to his grandmother's house. Mary, who apparently is the neighborhood busybody, noticed that the sprinklers were still turned on in her neighbor's yard when she returned home from her errands. We all need Mary types in our neighborhood.
Well, we kind of do. She's kind of the neighborhood watcher.
Right. She sees things.
She saw some interesting things that evening.
Yes, she did.
So it's 10:30 p.m. when Samantha and her daughter go home, and Deborah goes back inside her house. Now, Samantha said she saw some of the lights go off in the house around this time, so that's important to note because if Deborah had gone to bed and turned off all the lights, why were there lights on when Jeremy came home at 3:30?
Right.
That means maybe
not all of them were turned off.
No, but I got the impression that most of them were off and it was lit up more. I don't know why I have that impression, but I do. when Jeremy got home.
Because we haven't read anything that says there were more lights on than Deborah noticed, or not Deborah, that Samantha noticed.
True, but I don't think it was normal for Deborah to go to bed with those lights on and the door unlocked.
Oh, for sure.
Unless she was more drunk than usual. But you know what, usually, the thing is, Jeremy was usually home at night. So this was unusual for her to be home without him that late.
Right.
So maybe she wasn't managing things as they were normally managed, although, for me, if your husband's not home, you're more careful about locking the door. At least I am.
Well, wouldn't you be?
Well, yeah, because I'm going to watch my murder shows.
Yeah.
I'm going to hear noises.
You're thinking
my
someone's
dogs are
breaking
useless,
in.
Right?
When your dogs are all deaf or senile. So they're not going to respond to the housebreakers.
That's right. So I'm going to make sure the doors are locked, although I might leave more lights on.
Yeah.
Yep, I probably would.
You would.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd have TV on and records going and lots of noise.
Not necessarily.
Oh, come on. You would.
No, I wouldn't. I might have the TV on.
You for sure would have the TV on. And you'd have every light in the house lit up.
No, I'm not that big of a baby.
And lights on the outside.
Well, yes, I always leave the outside lights on, unless you get a hold of them and turn them off behind my back. I think it's important to have your outside lights on at night. Anyway, we're getting off topic.
We are.
So Shane, back to Shane, he stepped outside again to smoke another cigarette. And Deborah was no longer outside. Samantha was sitting in front of her own house at that time smoking a cigarette. So Samantha hangs around outside a lot.
She does.
For October. Now the two chatted across their yards, Shane and Samantha. But after one cigarette, Shane went back into the house. Now Deborah said she left the computer room window open that night, but the screen was normal. And due to the alcohol, she's unsure. She doesn't remember if she locked the door.
Right. And she's not sure if she checked on the baby.
Right.
She went to sleep with the two boys and the stray kitten. And at some point during the night, one of the boys got up and went to his own bed.
Right, exactly.
So around 11 o'clock, Mary, thank God for Mary, she noticed that the sprinklers had been turned off at her neighbor's house. So she figured that Jersey had turned them off because he was responsible for tending to the yard while the family was out of town.
Yeah, I don't know if I would notice these things. She is really on top of things.
She's watching everything.
Although she didn't see what happened to baby Lisa, unfortunately.
Well, she didn't see anyone carrying baby Lisa out of the house.
That would have been later after Samantha was in bed, I imagine, and Mary was in bed.
Well, we don't know. I get a picture of Mary standing guard throughout the night.
No, I think...
patrolling the streets.
I think she eventually went to bed. So it was 11:30 when Samantha went into her house. And at 11:57, someone attempted to make a phone call to a woman named Megan Wright's cell phone using one of the phones that was missing from Deborah and Jeremy's home.
Right. Remember we said that when they discovered the baby missing, they found the screen broken into and cell phones missing.
Exactly.
So this might be some clue.
So if an abductor took the phones and tried to make this call at 11:57, that means Lisa was taken pretty early.
Right.
Right? Only like a little over an hour after Deborah went to bed.
Although I'm not sure, just to kind of be devil's advocate, why would you steal cell phones and then use them?
Well, I don't know. But why? But Lisa doesn't know Megan, so there's no way Lisa did it.
No, I know that.
Okay.
But I don't know why, if I'm kidnapping a baby or stealing a baby, why am I spending time? Actually, I wouldn't take the cell phone to begin with.
Well, they may have taken the cell phones so they couldn't call for help right away because there was no landline.
Good point.
Yeah, so that's a possibility.
But then why would I use the cell phone?
Well, that's just stupid. I don't know.
Yeah, anyway. But it turns out that it probably didn't come to anything, although there's some tantalizing information there.
Yes. Well, notably, Megan was Jersey's ex-girlfriend.
So here we got Jersey, the guy who's kind of the neighborhood ne'er-do-well, does odd jobs, suspected of breaking into places and stealing things, and he's calling his ex-girlfriend.
From one of these phones.
From one of the phones that had been stolen.
Well, we don't know that he did it, but it's quite notable that that's his ex-girlfriend. That could be him.
Right. It is. It's very interesting.
Now, the pair, Megan and Jersey, had just broken up 10 days prior to Lisa's disappearance. So Jersey, he did do this handyman work for a neighbor of the family, and he had become acquainted with many of the neighbors. So he was vague about where he'd been or what he was up to. He was pretty friendly, but he did tell one of the neighbors that he had an outstanding warrant for his arrest. So Jersey had a history of robbing homes in the Kansas City area. He was no stranger to the criminal justice system.
No, he wasn't. Now, Megan Wright said that she doesn't know Deborah or Jeremy, either the parents of the missing child, Lisa. Deborah and Jeremy said that they don't know Megan. So we have a dead end kind of there.
Well, it's interesting because the Irwin family's cell phone records for the year prior to Lisa going missing show no incoming or outgoing calls were made to or from Megan Wright's cell phone before that night.
So that would be some information that I would think is important.
Yeah, because there's no connection here.
No.
So that makes me think someone else must be involved.
It sure sounds like that.
It does, doesn't it?
Although I'm still trying to grasp why, if you're taking the baby and taking the cell phones to prevent the occupants from calling anybody, why would you use one of the cell phones to call somebody?
Right. Unless
Stupid.
maybe you wanted Megan Wright to be implicated. If he was angry with her.
Because they broke up?
Yeah. Who knows?
Okay.
I don't know what the circumstances were of the breakup, but Megan Wright, she really became the center of attention in the missing baby Lisa case early on because her cell phone was called that night from the cell phone belonging to Deborah, and it was allegedly stolen, and she was kind of open to speaking with the media. She spoke to police, she spoke to CNN, and she told them that she never received this 50-second cell phone call because the phone was not in her possession, but it was upstairs in her home.
Yeah, so 50 seconds means that it wasn't just a call and a hang-up.
Yeah, something was said there.
Something happened.
Right.
Okay.
So she lived in the Brighton Townhomes complex, and she said that she had 7 people in her home on the night Lisa disappeared, and she'd allowed those 7 people to use her phone, so whoever called may have been attempting to reach one of them. So Megan believes that after talking to other people that were in the house at the same time in October, that a man named Dane was the one that answered the phone. So Dane was a friend of hers, also known as DJ Diggler, and...
Please.
I know. Megan was told by one person, who she won't name, that Dane was receiving so many phone calls from Megan's phone, they weren't able to use the phone at all to send an email or to talk to anyone.
So Dane was hogging the phone.
Yes. I don't know who all these people are, but it sounds like they were spending the night.
Right.
That's a little shady.
It does. Sounds shady. But does it mean that Dane knows who the 50-second phone call is from and possibly even talk to them?
It could.
Dane did talk to the police shortly after Lisa went missing, but has since left the home he is staying at, and no one knows his whereabouts. Well, that's interesting.
That is interesting.
There have been no reports that the police are looking for him to speak to him again and try to get some information that Megan brought to police. Well, I'd want to look at him.
Well, I'm thinking they must have.
Yeah, because they didn't pursue the case that way, right?
No, I would think if they thought he was up to something, they would be pursuing him.
One would think, right?
Mm-hmm. So on Tuesday, October 4th, around 12:30 a.m., so this is the same night, it's turning from the 3rd to the 4th, so it's around 12:30, and around the corner from the Irwin home, a man was leaving his house to go to work. And as he was walking to his car, he noticed a man carrying a baby down the street. His wife saw him stop and look at something, so she watched the man from the front window of their home, too. So this couple saw the man walking toward the yard of a house that Jersey was staying in. Police later interviewed the couple at least 4 times about this sighting. Now, due to the sprinklers being left on in the yard, the ground was really muddy, so later that morning police were able to take casts of footprints from the area leading into that backyard. Now, Mary told a reporter that Jersey and his girlfriend, at that time, Megan Wright, would often cut through the backyard as a shortcut to the North Brighton townhomes where Megan lived.
So the implication is that somebody snatched the baby and passed it off to Jersey. Is that correct?
Or that Jersey snatched the baby and took the baby to Megan's house.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But they never seemed...
They ended up there.
Yeah, but there's no proof of that. They never came up with anything. That's the mystery.
I know.
Now, another thing is someone tried to use the internet browser on Deborah's phone 5 times that night.
Yeah, but it wouldn't work because all that had been suspended due to non-payment of bill.
Right, exactly. So another interesting thing is that sighting at 2 a.m. at the gas station.
Yeah, there's a surveillance video from a BP gas station, which was located at North Brighton and Parvin Road, not far from the Irwin home. It showed a person walking along the road, and the store manager said it's unusual to see someone walking in that area at that time of night. Well, yeah, it's 2 a.m.
Yeah, and it looks like the person is coming from the woods. And I think it also kind of looks like a white shirt, which was the description of the man with the baby also.
Right.
So another weird coincidence, or something related perhaps, was at 2:27 a.m., a dumpster fire was reported in the parking lot of the North Brighton townhouses near the home of Lisa Irwin and her family. Back on September 16th of that same year, Megan Wright's car had been set on fire in a different area of that same parking lot. So that really makes me think this Jersey guy was up to some of this stuff.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's tough.
Well, what's the coincidence? I mean, what are the odds that her car is going to be set on fire?
It's just coincidence.
Less than a month before the dumpster fire?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I guess you'd have to find out how often these fires are happening,
yeah.
But it seems unusual to me.
We got fires every month in this dumpster.
Well, if it was a normal, if it was kind of a regular occurrence, it doesn't sound like the best neighborhood.
No,
it is possible.
It certainly doesn't. But I don't know how, in the absence of other things, you can link Megan Wright's car fire with the dumpster fire.
Well, it hasn't been linked. I'm just saying it's curious that they both happened.
Well, curious is something.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's evidence of anything, but it's unusual, I would think.
Yeah. And then we have a couple other curious but interesting things. We got somebody attempting to check voicemail in the missing phone at 3:17 and again at 3:32.
Okay, so some people were saying that points to Deborah because someone's checking the voicemail. But another interesting thing could be that the person that took the phones was checking to see if there was any activity. Anyone leaving messages about the child or anything.
Yeah.
So at 3:45 a.m., Jeremy returned home from work, and he found the front door unlocked, the lights on, and as he walked through the house turning lights off, he noticed that a window was left open in the computer room and that the screen had been pushed inwards.
Right, and Jeremy's turning the lights off because they're not good financially, and he's making sure that they're as frugal as they can be.
Right. So, he sees Blake in the bed, he sees his wife in the bed, and this is when he goes into Lisa's room and finds that she's not there. Right, so he's kind of perturbed. We already talked about that. Concerned about the electrical bill. And he asked her why the lights were on and mentioned that the front door was unlocked and that the computer room window was open and that the screen was pushed in. And then he's freaked out because Lisa's not in the crib, of course. So they say that both parents frantically began searching the house for Lisa. And Deborah was so upset she collapsed on the floor sobbing, "Where's my baby?" That kind of a thing. And Jeremy, just desperately trying to have some hopes, ran next door and banged on Samantha's door just to see if Lisa could possibly have been there.
But she hadn't been.
No.
And the parents noticed that Jeremy's personal cell phone, Deborah's broken cell phone, and a temporary phone that Deborah had gotten from her grandfather, they're missing too.
Right, so the reason they had 3 phones is because Deborah's was broken, and she'd gotten one from her grandfather to use, but they were all useless.
Well, I'm thinking if her grandfather gave her a phone, unless he changed ownership to it, that wouldn't matter if you hadn't paid your bills because it wasn't in her name.
I think they were all on the same plan.
Okay, so that works.
But Jeremy had his mobile work phone, thankfully.
Yeah.
So it was around 4 o'clock when he called 911 from the mobile work phone. So the 911 dispatch tapes indicate that Jeremy reported Lisa was missing and that a window screen had been busted. And Deborah stood out front with her crying sons and waited for police to arrive. At that time, Jeremy grabbed a flashlight from his work truck and started searching the yard, just in case by some fluke the 10-month-old got out of the crib and wandered off.
I mean, You want to do something. That's a natural tendency. Let's search the environment.
Sure.
So around 4:10 in the morning, there's a man riding on a motorcycle who said he saw a person walking with a baby in his arms at the intersection of Northeast 48th Street and North Randolph.
So that's less than 3 miles away.
Right.
And he said the man was wearing a hoodie, and he asked the guy if he needed help or anything, and the guy just shook his head. So first we had a man in a T-shirt. This one has a hoodie, so I'm not sure about that. But how many men can be out walking with a baby?
But it's 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning. Who's going to be out walking with a baby?
I don't know. It's very strange. Well, the first police car arrived at their home at around 4:10, and the Amber Alert was turned on, and a local suburban landfill was searched right away.
Right. Now, the next morning, or maybe afternoon, the Amber Alert got turned off. That seems to me that's a little quick. Turn off the Amber Alert.
I know, but with an Amber Alert, don't you have to have some clue of what to look for, like a car or something?
Well, I guess you do, but still, you got a missing 10-month-old who's not disappeared on her own.
That's true. Do you think they were jumping to conclusions about parents, and that's why they did it?
I think that's possible.
It does seem quick. You're right. I'm not sure about that. But Deborah and Jeremy on the 6th, which was the Monday, gave a tearful television plea begging whoever had their baby to please bring her home.
Right. And that very same day, the Kansas City police chief, or captain, Steve Young, claimed the parents had stopped cooperating with police. Now, that's interesting. And we heard that in the intro.
Yeah, and that really seems to set them up for public scrutiny. When the police say that, that's a pretty bold thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that works both ways, right? I mean, from the police aspect, parents aren't helpful, so they're going to say that. But that's not a good thing for the parents. And there might be reasons for them not cooperating with the police that have nothing to do with their guilt or innocence.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that. I just want to take a minute now to talk about our sponsor.
Okay.
A complaint that I have, and I share with you, Dick, every 4 to 5 weeks when I would go, is that I have to go to the salon to get my hair colored. Even though I think of myself as a natural blonde, it kind of takes some maintenance to maintain that natural blondness, and I have to go for these visits that I complain about.
You do?
Now, they take me 1.5 to 2 hours and cost me close to $200, so I think I have reason to complain. There are worse things in the world, but this is a pain. Also, I'm an introvert. I can chat here at the microphone for hours, but sitting and chatting at the salon is not my favorite thing. So Madison Reed, a company that's changed the way I color my hair, is a really big life hack for me. Madison Reed delivers salon-quality, ammonia-free hair color to my door for under $25. And I can really feel good about the ingredients. Plus, I can stay home listening to my favorite podcasts, getting work done around the house, at the same time that I get beautiful.
Right. And you know what?
What?
You look better with this stuff than going to the hairdresser.
Well, thank you. It is great stuff.
It is.
So join the thousands of women who've switched to Madison Reed, the multi-dimensional hair color that's made in Italy and delivered to your door on your schedule. Find your ideal color at madison-reed.com. Madison Reed would like to honor our True Crime Brewery listeners with 10% off, plus free shipping on your first color kit. And the promo code is BREWERY. That's madison-reed.com and promo code BREWERY for 10% off and free shipping. Check it out. So on October 7th, Deborah and Jeremy, they go on the Today Show. And what did you think of this interview?
Well, I just don't like people going on these shows.
I know, but I think it's crucial to get the word out, though. I think it's something you need to do.
I think you can do that without going on the Today Show or Good Morning America or those places. I mean,
where are you going to do it?
Locally.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I think you need to get the word out as much as possible.
I'm sorry.
No matter where you go.
I'm sorry. I just
don't apologize. Just tell me your problem with it.
It's publicity seeking.
Well, that's what you want. You need to expose.
No, it's not for the missing child. It's for the parents.
I don't believe that. I disagree.
Okay. I just don't like it.
I mean, what parent with a missing child wants publicity over it?
Well, plenty.
I don't think so.
I think we're in disagreement here.
I think so. I mean, I'm not a fan of it, but I understand that it's a necessity.
I don't think it's a necessity. I think it's a luxury.
Okay. Well, what would you recommend they do? Just go to local news?
Well, yeah. It's a local crime.
Yeah, but not everyone watches local news. A lot more people watch the Today Show, Oprah, all those kind of things, Dr. Phil even, than watch the local news. So I really think it's an important thing to do.
Okay. Let's agree to disagree on that.
Absolutely. So Matt Lauer questioned the parents, asking why police have called them uncooperative.
And they claim police accused her from the very beginning of being involved in her baby's disappearance.
Yeah,
so that's
Deborah.
Something.
Deborah explained that she was told that she failed a polygraph, the lie detector test, but she didn't know why, and authorities were continuing to search for baby Lisa. Now the FBI searched a suburban landfill, and for the second time that week they'd done that. So that's kind of strange. Why a landfill?
Well, where are you going to dispose of a body?
I don't know, but if they think the parents did it, they think the parents would have done that?
Sure. I mean, a landfill's a great place because it gets turned over regularly. And rather than disposing of a body in the woods or wherever, if you put it in a landfill, you're less likely to be discovered.
But if the baby had been abducted, usually a baby that age being abducted is because someone wants a child, not because they're going to be murdered.
Right.
So it seems like the police are definitely going with the idea that Deborah did something.
Sounds like they're searching a landfill.
So a teenage neighbor was questioned also on October 7th by police and swabbed for DNA, which came to nothing. So it was later released that police lied to Deborah about this failed polygraph to get her to break down and make a confession. Now they can do this. The police can lie to you.
We know that.
This is why you should never go talk to the police without a lawyer.
Exactly.
They're very tricky.
Well, they're trying to get you to confess.
Well, and I understand that they probably need that ability to be able to lie and trick people, but you really need to protect yourself against that.
Well, I don't have any problem with the police lying to you.
If you're a suspect.
If you're a suspect. But I don't have any problem with saying, lawyer up.
Exactly.
I mean, if there's one thing you and I have learned from doing all these cases, get your lawyer early.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, when she comes out and says that the police told me I failed my lie detector test, but I couldn't have because I wasn't lying, you're going to believe the police. At least I would. I'd say, well, you must have done something because the police said you failed it.
Right.
So, that is a tricky thing, although I do kind of understand why.
Oh, I can, absolutely.
But I think if she passed it, maybe they should have backed off a little bit and looked in different directions, which maybe they did, but I don't know.
And maybe she didn't pass. Maybe she was kind of indeterminate.
Oh, I think she passed. I think they did reveal that eventually.
Okay.
Now, authorities investigated a few potential leads other than Deborah, like a couple that was seen with a small child, and Deborah and Jeremy tried to put together a monetary award to find Lisa. So on October 8th, Lisa's aunt Ashley Irwin handed out flyers at the Kansas Speedway NASCAR Sprint Cup race. A lot of people go to that.
Yeah, all the car race people.
That's right.
Big crowd.
Big thing around there.
So on October 10th, the FBI and the police staged a break-in to try to figure out potential ways an intruder could have entered the Irwin home. And they discovered that climbing through the tampered window is actually a lot more difficult than it seemed, because the intruder would have made a lot of noise, which might have waked the mother. Although I'm thinking she's drunk. She's probably gonzo sleeping.
Well, and this is, if she's innocent, this is something she's going to have to live with, and I do feel bad for her. Because she's always going to wonder, if I hadn't drunk, maybe I would have heard something and saved my daughter.
So I don't put any stock in the fact that, they made a lot of noise and they couldn't have broken in without waking her. She's had how many glasses of wine? She's passed out. She's not going to hear anything.
Probably, yeah. Well, there was also this fact that there was dust on the sill that was undisturbed, so that made them think it was impossible that someone had entered through that window. Of course, someone could have pushed on it, decided not to go that way, and gone in through the unlocked front door.
Right.
So it's not necessarily proof.
It isn't at all.
No. Well, the grand jury subpoenas were sent to multiple Kansas City television stations requesting all footage, including raw footage of any interviews or statements given by neighbors, family or friends of the family, regarding missing Lisa. And that was on October 10th. And then on October 11th, police and firefighters drained a well underneath the porch of an abandoned home to look for baby Lisa. Now, Lisa's Aunt Ashley Irwin told Good Morning America, and I know you disapprove of her doing that, right?
I do.
Okay.
Because I'm against performing on any national TV show.
Well, this isn't performing, though. I don't see why you can't...
It is performing.
Why can't you see that they need to get as much publicity as possible to find their daughter?
You don't have to go on Today or Good Morning America to do that.
Because you don't think that reaches a lot of people?
No.
Wow, I'm really surprised. I think you're wrong, but okay. We disagree on that.
Why don't you go on local news and get, what's the guy's name? John Walsh.
Well, yeah. But I still think local news is fine, but why not get everyone you can and every opportunity you can? Because she could have been taken and brought to another state. And I don't want to argue or try and convince you, but...
You won't convince me.
That's how I feel about it.
Nah, I just don't go for that.
Okay. Well, Deborah said that she was prepared to be arrested by police. She said, it's what the police do. They don't have any leads, so they just have to pin it on somebody. But police denied plans to arrest Deborah or any other suspects at this time.
Yeah, and October 12th, there's a security video released. Shows Deborah shopping with an unidentified man, who was amazingly later identified as her brother, because we already knew that.
Yes, but this is the first time the public saw the footage.
Right, and this is at 5 p.m. on October 3rd, which is just a few hours before baby Lisa went missing.
Well, I'd say several hours, 5 or 6 hours, right?
I said a few.
Well, several's more than a few.
Okay.
Either way, okay.
They went through Festival Foods, which is a local supermarket. They purchased diapers, a box of wine, and some baby wipes.
Okay, so I looked into these boxes of wine because I've never bought a box of wine, at least not that I can remember. So anyway, when you look at these boxes of wine, they equal 5 bottles of wine.
Yeah, they're like 3 liters.
So it's like 20 glasses.
Yeah.
So if she split that box with her friend...
That's 10 apiece.
10 glasses
10
apiece.
10 glasses each.
Yeah, so that's a couple bottles each.
I think you could get a pretty good buzz on with that.
I've had a bottle at a time before, and I've been pretty out of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so they had a lot of wine.
They did.
Yep. Okay, so they walked through there, they bought the wine, they bought diapers, they bought baby wipes.
The wine's the important thing.
Well, diapers are pretty important.
I guess.
But I don't see that this really... That didn't change anything.
No, that doesn't give you any information that you need.
No, because they told the police that. This isn't new information to the police.
No.
So a New York-based security consultant / private detective, Bill Stanton, who called himself Wild Bill, joined the team looking for baby Lisa Irwin. Now, Stanton claimed that he was conducting an independent investigation that was sponsored and paid for by a wealthy benefactor.
Now, I would love to know how this guy came to be involved.
Wild Bill or the benefactor?
Wild Bill.
Well, because a benefactor paid him to do it.
Just is a mystery to me.
Well, it is. So, on October 13th, authorities continued to search for baby Lisa. Missouri Governor Jay Nixon ordered a one-day deployment of 25 National Guardsmen to help in the search.
Yeah.
So this is 10 days out, which at 10 days out, she's either far gone or she's not alive.
Right.
It's desperation time.
So the search is to help find a body.
Yeah, at this point, it would be a body search, because if someone took her to keep her, they're probably far away.
Exactly. So this next day, the newly hired detective announced a $100,000 reward that was for the safe return of baby Lisa or conviction of those involved in the crime. This reward was posted by an anonymous benefactor. Deborah and Jeremy posted videos of baby Lisa on YouTube, including yelling at mommy, Lisa eating cereal, and Lisa's new toy.
So you don't think they should go on Good Morning America or Today? How do you feel about the YouTube videos?
I'm fine with that.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? What's the difference?
Because they're not on national TV. I mean, I know they're on national YouTube.
Right.
YouTube is all over the place.
Right.
But you're not sitting on national TV pleading for help.
Wow, so you have a definite grudge against these national TV shows, because
Well,
I don't see any other reason why you hate this.
I don't like them.
I know, but it seems almost like a thing with you.
It could be.
Because you're just taking that one thing and not liking it when they do all these other things that you're fine with. So it might be something you want to look into with therapy at some point.
Okay, I'll do that.
Because there's some kind of trigger there for you.
See, but I don't have anything wrong with going on YouTube. People can decide whether they want to view it or not.
This is some kind of Katie Couric, Matt Lauer trauma you had earlier in life.
It must be.
Okay. Well, on October 15th, the Kansas City Police Department continued their search, and they used helicopters, all-terrain vehicles. They did door-to-door interviews in an attempt to find Lisa. It was on October 17th that Deborah admitted on CNN that she drank 5 to 10 glasses of wine the night baby Lisa went missing. Now, she claimed she was the last person to see the baby, putting her down to sleep at 6:40 p.m. Now, she'd originally told the police, as we know, that she put her daughter to bed at 10:30. But Deborah gave no explanation for the change in her story, although I think I understand why she changed her story. That's not
she couldn't
a
remember.
mystery to me.
She was fogged in.
Well, yeah, and she didn't want to admit that she was drunk.
Right, but by 10:30, she was pretty much in the bag.
But it was probably her habit to check on Lisa, so she thought she had, but then she was so drunk she couldn't remember.
Yeah, so it's easier to say, 6:30 was when I actually did it.
But then things are getting serious. They can't find your daughter. You want to be honest.
Yeah.
So I understand at least she became honest about it.
Yeah, she did.
If she didn't care about finding her daughter, she could have stuck to the original story.
Right.
Nobody would have known. So Deborah told the Today Show that Lisa's half-brothers, aged 5 and 8, claimed they did hear noises the night of Lisa's disappearance. So this was new information 2 weeks out.
Yeah, you see?
At least to the public. I mean, the police might have known this. But this is information that was just shared 2 weeks out.
So this is something that appears on the Today Show.
Yes. So you don't like it?
No, I'm not saying that. But this is information that could have been imparted to the local police.
Well, I'm sure it was.
So then why do you need to go on the Today Show?
Well, to get more people
informed. I'm just picking on things now.
Okay. Well, I see what you're saying. Is it really important to let the public know? But I think telling the public as much as possible might be the right idea. And there's some people that don't believe you should give out too much information, but I think if you really want to find your child, you might want to do that.
And I'm submitting that you can do that without appearing on the Today Show.
I know.
Or Good Morning America or whatever.
Duly noted.
Thank you.
So one other thing is that, Deborah was interviewed extensively by the police early on. She gave an interview of over 12 hours with police, and she said they got really accusatory with her and were starting to really blame her and try and get her to confess.
Well, sure.
So this is when they stopped cooperating, because I could kind of understand that.
Well, I can too, but I can also look at the police viewpoint. What's the simplest explanation for the baby's disappearance?
And the most likely is usually the parents.
The mother.
Yes.
So.
Right. But I can see how she would get turned off to that and get a lawyer and stop talking.
I can too.
I'm sure a lawyer would advise her to stop talking.
I would hope so.
So it was on October 18th, speaking of lawyers, when Deborah and Jeremy retained the high-profile New York lawyer Joe Tacopina, who has experience. He worked with Michael Jackson and Jordan Vandersloot. He was the one who they think Natalie Holloway was killed by.
Right.
And it was unclear who was paying his fees, though, because I'm sure he's an expensive attorney.
You know that.
So I wonder if this mysterious benefactor paid him. Or maybe he did it pro bono for the publicity.
He could have. I mean, the benefactor doesn't stand to lose any money unless there's credible information that comes in. So, I mean, it's easy. I can say I'm going to post $1 million reward for the discovery of the baby. And if nobody can come forward, I don't pay $1 million.
Right.
I mean, so it's easy to do that.
But if they come forward, you've got to cough it up.
Well, yeah, but I'm thinking that's not going to happen.
Right, but the attorney's a different story.
Yeah, someone's got to pay the attorney.
He's going to want money up front, unless he's doing it just for the publicity. But I doubt it. Somehow I think he was being paid.
Okay.
Just my opinion. I have no reason to say that, but I think so.
I'll just say, because I'm cantankerous tonight. that he might have done it just to get the publicity.
He might have. No, I agree. He might have. So on that same day, on the 18th, the Federal Aviation Administration had initiated a no-fly zone over a search area around Lisa's home near Kansas City. So that was a remarkable thing. That's not something they do every day.
No, that's a big deal.
But still, they found no sign of her.
Nope. And then the next day, a Missouri judge granted a search warrant to police to search the Irwin home and yard without the couple being present. That's interesting.
I know, because they had already done a search with the couple there.
Right.
So I wonder what that was about.
So no one could enter the house until police completed their investigation. Authorities sought for DNA, blood, fingerprints, and other evidence. They removed brown paper bags and some of baby Lisa's clothes and toys from the home. Complete investigation lasted 17 hours. And here's the big one. Cadaver dog brought into the home indicated a positive scent of a deceased human in an area on the floor near Deborah's bed.
In the master bedroom.
That's a biggie.
Yeah.
So how accurate is that?
There are some questions about that we'll go into.
Yeah,
Let's get through the timeline.
We'll address that later.
And then I want to talk more about that, because this is something that we addressed in our episode on Madeleine McCann.
Right.
The little baby girl that went missing in Portugal.
And I'm a big fan of the cadaver dogs.
It was Portugal, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have a high belief in the accuracy of the cadaver dogs.
I do.
Okay.
But we'll get more into that.
We'll get more into it. I have some information on that I'll share. But on October 21st, 3 eyewitnesses, Mike Thompson and an unnamed couple, told ABC News that they saw a mystery man carrying a baby, wearing a diaper, around Kansas City the night of baby Lisa's disappearance. So this is something that had already been shared with the police.
Yeah, now I'm just asking how you can tell just by observing that the baby's only wearing a diaper.
I don't know.
Right.
They didn't say only a diaper.
Well, that's the implication. I mean, it wasn't wrapped in a blanket or anything.
No, but from other sources I'd heard that it was a T-shirt and a diaper the baby was wearing.
Well, why didn't they say that?
I don't know. But the thing is, I would think on a 45-degree night, I'd have my baby in a footed onesie.
Inside the house, right?
Yeah, at bed, yeah. So if someone took the baby, why would they change the baby's clothes or take the baby's clothes off?
Right.
So it's all
Although I could expect that if the baby was put down just in a diaper, that's all the kid had on.
I know, but unless the house was really warm,
yeah,
I would find that unusual. And another weird thing is they had the window open.
Right.
In the computer room.
Well, we think so.
Well, she said they did, and the screen was pushed in, so...
Well, she couldn't remember.
Yeah, but the window was open when Jeremy got home.
Yeah.
Right.
But she couldn't remember if she left the window open or not.
No, she remembered that. She didn't remember if she'd locked the door or not.
Okay.
She did remember that the window was left open, and that was something they did quite often. But my point is it was only 45 degrees out. To me, that's odd.
Yeah, it's cool.
I mean, the heat must have been paid by the landlord, because you think you'd be trying to conserve heat and not leave your window open when it's 45 degrees.
And you wouldn't put your baby down just in a diaper.
Yeah, so these are little things that are odd to me. So also on the 21st, this is when the parents' lawyer released a press release. And this was in response primarily to the police saying that the parents weren't being cooperative anymore. And that that really maligned the parents in the public eye.
Well, of course. All you got to do is hear parents of missing child are non-compliant, and you're thinking bad thoughts about them.
Immediately, yeah.
Right?
Exactly. So the press release, I'm going to read some of it. So it's a press release from October 21st, 2011, from the law firm for Jeremy and Deborah, the parents of Lisa. So it starts out, it says, in an effort to bring their little girl, Lisa Renee, home after being kidnapped on October 4th, 2011, Debbie and Jeremy have given law enforcement officers in Kansas City their complete cooperation in all matters since the beginning of the investigation. Debbie and Jeremy want one thing, the safe return of their little girl. Jeremy Irwin and Deborah Bradley had no role in the disappearance of their daughter. They are praying for her safe return. They need the public to look for their little girl and the public to report anything they think might help bring Lisa Renee home. On October 4th, 2011, at around 4 a.m., Jeremy and Debbie discovered that their 10-month-old daughter, Lisa Renee, was missing from her crib. Within minutes of this discovery, Jeremy called the police. Now from that moment forward, they have had one goal, which is to do whatever they can do to help the police find their daughter. To that end, Lisa's parents have signed consent forms for searches of their home, shed, cars, work van, camper, and computer. They have given the police full and unfettered access to their property. The latest release for a search of their home was signed on Monday, October 17th, 2011. So in addition, Lisa's parents gave permission to the police to issue an Amber Alert. They agreed to have their little sons taken for interviews at a place that is specially trained in interviewing children. They have allowed the police to collect hair samples from their heads. They have given inked and graphite elimination prints when requested. They have consented to buccal swabs for themselves and their kids. They have allowed the police to collect elimination smell swabs to use with the dogs who are specially trained for searches. They have given police releases for Lisa's pediatrician's records. Lisa's uncle has allowed search of his home and property where the family is currently living. Lisa's uncle has consented to smell swabs for the dogs. Lisa's parents have consented to interviews at the police station on October 4th, October 6th, October 8th, October 9th, October 11th, and on October 13th. They met with detectives in their home and reviewed mugshots. Together and apart, they have spent approximately 40 hours answering police questions. They have taken all calls from the detectives and answered questions posed again and again. In the initial hours of the investigation, they tolerated accusations, volunteered to take polygraph exams, continued to work with detectives even after the interviews turned into pointed accusations. Lisa's parents resisted the idea of working with lawyers because as innocent parents, they didn't believe that they needed any legal help. Family and friends were able to convince them otherwise. The police, however, have starved these parents by withholding information about the investigation. The police have isolated the parents and repeatedly told the press that they are not cooperating. Lisa's parents are cooperating with this investigation and will continue to offer their help in a search for their beautiful little girl. So what do you think about that?
Well, granted, that's from a defense attorney, but it still sounds like the people are cooperating.
Well, yeah, I think it was almost necessary for them to release that because, like we heard in the introduction...
Yeah, they had to counter the accusations that they weren't cooperating.
Exactly, which were kind of going rampant.
Right, and this sounds like they were trying to be helpful.
Well, I think they were. I think they were initially cooperating, and then when the accusations started, they went to a lawyer, which seems completely appropriate to me. I don't have any problem with that.
I don't either.
So on October 23rd, 2 days later, ABC News released surveillance footage found by a local gas station, and this is the one that showed a man leaving a wooded area near the home. This is the one we talked about earlier, the man in the white shirt.
The white T-shirt.
Yeah.
Although the witnesses who saw him on the road didn't say he wore a white T-shirt, did they? But anyway.
I think one of them did.
Anyway.
Yeah.
The police showed pictures to eyewitnesses. Mike Thompson, in an effort to identify and locate the mystery man who was spotted on the night of baby Lisa's disappearance. He said it might have been. The other two eyewitnesses did not recognize the man identified by Thompson.
So Thompson did identify him, but the other two...
It's a nuance, but the other two, the couple said, no, it's not him.
Right.
Police tried to convince Deborah and Jeremy to do separate interviews to answer a list of tough questions.
Okay, now the thing is, they did initially do separate interviews.
Yeah.
But that was early on, and then they'd stopped doing that. And then when they refused to do it later, that's when they were accused.
So now you're uncooperative.
Exactly.
But they did agree to let Lisa's half-brothers, the boys that were ages 5 and 8, be interviewed by child specialists and swabbed for DNA. These interviews are scheduled for Friday, October 28th.
Right, so police extended their search for missing baby Lisa to Shamir Lake, but they found no clues in the small lake near the Kansas City home. On October 28th, their attorney, Joe Tocopina, called off the scheduled interviews and DNA swabs of the half-brothers. So Cindy Short, the local counsel working with Deborah and Jeremy, was either fired or quit, we're not sure, from the case. But there are no clear reasons given for her dismissal.
She just wasn't there.
Or why the boys' interview and swabs were canceled.
Well, I'm thinking that the big guy from New York, Takapina, said we're not going to do that.
Okay, but I can't see what would be the harm in that.
Well, we can't, but...
Well, I kind of can, actually, with the interview of the boys, because children are so easily misled.
Well, yeah.
They can...
But, yeah, and maybe that's the reason, because I'm sure that the directions for calling off the scheduled interviews came from him, right?
I would think so. He was running things.
Right.
But the DNA swabs, I don't really see the point of that. They shared the home with Lisa. It's not like Lisa's been found dead, so they have no forensics to compare them.
It's not going to do anything.
So I'm not sure about that. I mean, I really don't think these kids had anything to do with it. They loved their sister. These are little kids.
Right.
So on November 1st, the attorney announced that the Kansas City lawyer John Paserno was going to join the team of attorneys assisting Deborah and Jeremy now that Cindy Short wasn't on the case anymore.
Right. And then the next day, there's a news source reporting details about the night that the baby Lisa disappeared. New information revealed that Deborah and her neighbor Samantha sat on the steps outside the Irwin Bradley home from 7 until 10:30, smoking and drinking. So that's kind of pejorative right there. You know?
Sure.
They're sitting out there smoking and drinking for 3.5 hours.
Yeah. So people are going to judge them for that.
Right.
So on November 6th, this is when the next bit of information comes out, and Lisa's maternal grandfather spoke out on ABC's Nightline. So that you would disapprove of as well. Is Nightline okay?
I'm going to be consistent, yeah.
Oh, okay. So he emphasized that Deborah and Jeremy were unhappy with how the police had handled the case. My God, he said, Debbie and Jeremy can't even relax and smoke on the back porch without seeing hidden cameras popping out of brush. It's horrible, he explained. Nobody knows how they'd react until this happens, and I'm sick of hearing, if they really cared, they'd be doing so-and-so. And through it all, little Lisa is out there somewhere, and that's what gets me. So I'm on board with Grandpa here.
Well, yeah.
I mean, cut the shit. We can judge people all day and night, but that's not the point here. Let's look for the little girl.
Right. But he doesn't have to go on Nightline to say that.
Of course not. He could have done it locally.
I'm sticking with that.
Sure, that's okay. So on November 8th, 2 days later, new details emerged about the missing cell phone, allegedly stolen from their home. Phone records indicated that Deborah's cell phone was used to make a 50-second phone call to Megan, which we mentioned earlier. So Megan was the ex-girlfriend of the neighborhood handyman and ne'er-do-well, John Jersey Tanko. So Jersey had a criminal record, and he was extensively interviewed by police. Now Megan claimed she didn't receive the phone call late that night because someone else in her house, there were 7 people there, had been using this phone. It was kind of a shared phone.
Right.
So it seems like people here didn't have much money, and she's helping them out and letting them use the phone.
Right. And 2 more days later, Lisa's half-brothers, the boys were ages 5 and 8, they're interviewed by child specialists with the Kansas City Police Department.
Okay, so they did let them move forward with those interviews.
They did, eventually. We don't know about the DNA swabs.
I don't even think that's relevant.
But I don't either. They're 5 and 8. But the 2 boys allegedly heard noises late October 4th, which is the night Lisa disappeared.
And Deborah had said such, so it wasn't something that she was hiding. She had said that earlier.
She had said that the boys heard noises?
Yes.
She didn't hear noises?
No, she said the boys heard noises.
Okay.
She didn't hear anything.
So police began to slow down their search, and they stopped doing physical field searches.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. I guess just because resources are running thin. It's been over a month now.
Right, and they haven't found any information about where the baby is.
Nothing, and that's really so hard to believe that a little baby could just disappear and there's no sign. And I can see that's why they're pointing at the parents, because it's really unusual for an abductor to come in, take a baby, and there's no trace of the baby.
And there's no trace.
Right.
So you're going to be focused on the parents, one of whom has an alibi.
Yeah, so it's really the mother that they're focused on.
Right.
although they really have no evidence or motive for her to hurt the baby. And we'll go into that in a little bit about what could have happened. What were the possibilities that night?
They have nothing that suggests that she did it.
No, not at all. So on November 11th, this was Lisa's first birthday, so that was a sad day for everyone.
I can imagine.
Her grandfather said that her birthday was really the oh my God moment for the parents, Jeremy and Deborah. Not having her home for her first birthday made her disappearance a very cold reality for them. Now, the family attorney discussed the circumstances of the couple's stolen cell phones on America Live. That is a national talk show hosted by Megyn Kelly.
Oh, God, another national show.
One. Then on November 12th, he told Fox News that he believed the phone call made from the missing cell phone the night of Lisa's disappearance proves their innocence.
Well,
that's a bit of a stretch.
It suggests...
It may suggest their innocence.
Right.
Not proof, though.
No, it's not proof, but it's certainly... I mean, if they were stolen, Deborah wasn't the one making the call.
Well, right. Plus, the person that was called, there was no connection between Deborah and Jeremy and those people.
But there was a connection between Jersey, who was a suspect.
That's what makes me really like him as a suspect, but police must know something I don't.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure they know plenty that I don't. Let's be realistic.
Well, I'm sure.
But I just don't understand that. I mean, he also expressed some concern that police believed Deborah to be a suspect. And police were continuing to claim that they were looking at all possible leads and circumstances. But Kansas City Police Captain Steve Young expressed frustration at their unwillingness to speak openly with the police. Now, I don't know if they were unwilling. I think they were willing to go in and talk to police as much as they wanted with their attorney present. They just didn't want to be broken up and taken into rooms and interrogated, which is, I think, what the police wanted to do, was really give them that come-to-Jesus moment.
Right.
Because they think the mother did it, they want to get her to confess.
Sure they do.
It's normally how these things go, unfortunately.
That's what the attorney's job is.
To protect them.
To protect them.
Yeah, so the attorney's doing his job.
So he's doing what he should be doing.
Exactly.
So the family moved back into their Kansas City home on November 15th. That's the first time since baby Lisa's disappearance. The mother of Lisa's 8-year-old half-brother, who's named Blake, filed for emergency custody of her son, citing the trauma involved with the missing child. Now, Jeremy had been given full custody of Blake in 2008, and he maintained custody.
Yeah, so this was kind of a joke.
It was, and this mother must be kind of a joke, too.
There must be issues, because she hasn't had her baby since her baby was an infant.
Not for 6 years,
and
since age 2.
Which is fine. The father could have custody, and there could be reasons for that. But the thing that gets me is she hadn't had any contact with him since he was 2, so 6 years.
Right, and she wants custody.
So that's a problem.
Give me a break.
Yeah, there's something wrong with her there.
I think so.
Yeah.
So November 16th, there's a retired Kansas City policeman named Dave Bernard, and he spoke to local news stations about whether Lisa was still alive, saying, "You know, at this stage, I don't know. I doubt it. I doubt that she's still alive."
So that hurts to hear that if you're someone who loves Lisa.
Right.
It's a harsh thing to hear.
But that's a realistic viewpoint.
Right, exactly. But still, it's hard to hear. It was 3 days later on November 19th that Dane, remember him, he was Megan Wright's former roommate.
Right, he's the cell phone guy.
He was hogging the cell phone that night.
Yeah.
He came forward to explain that he had Megan's mobile phone on the night of Lisa's disappearance, so no big surprise there. But he didn't know who called, he said, and he doesn't know Deborah or her husband or the kids or any of that family. So I wonder, he must have known Jersey. I mean, I haven't seen that said, but I imagine if Jersey is Megan's boyfriend, then Dane probably knew Jersey,
right.
At least as an acquaintance.
He knew something. He's a roommate.
Sure.
Right?
Exactly, and they'd only been broken up 10 days, so he must have known him.
I would think.
So on November 22nd, authorities investigated the possibility that Jersey had kidnapped baby Lisa for $300 based on an anonymous tip. So to me, that's even a ne'er-do-well guy who's kind of hard up. Are you really going to kidnap a baby for $300?
No.
Maybe if you're a drug addict or something, you're desperate in that way.
Yeah, but I need more money to do that.
Right, and there was no evidence that he was addicted to anything, drug-wise.
No.
So it was later determined that he was most likely not involved in the case, and This is kind of a disappointment for many people who thought she was abducted because he looked like the best suspect.
Well, he still might be.
Well, yeah, but police have really kind of eliminated him.
I know, at this point.
Yeah.
So, a couple of days later, November 24th.
Oh, you're going to love this.
I know. We're going to have fun with this. That's why I hogged this one. There's a Texan psychic, Stephanie Almaguer, who described having a vision on her blog. She claims she saw baby Lisa accidentally die in her home, claiming the infant's body was dumped in an area resembling a former Kansas City casino.
Okay.
So I'm not even going to go there.
But you know what? Sometimes the police listen to these people and do searches.
Well, I think they have to.
Right.
Not because they actually believe what they're saying, but they have to investigate all sources.
Well, you know what it makes me think is if someone says they're a psychic and they saw these visions, maybe there's some truth in there that they actually saw something. And that would be the reason I'd follow up. Maybe she's saying she had this vision, but she actually did see something or hear something in real life that she's pretending was a vision.
No.
Okay. Well, that's what I think.
No, I think that she's believing that she's helping by seeing this stuff. But she has no direct knowledge of anything.
Okay. Well, probably it's just her imagination.
She's claiming her psychic powers.
Well, you know, I think psychics play the odds, right?
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah, they do.
When they're trying to, like, convince you, oh, he was wearing red or blue, they're going to pick the most common colors. Or his name was Joe. There's someone with a name starting with J.
No, you're right. They're playing the odds.
They're playing the odds.
But still.
So I'm just saying the odds here could be that something happened to baby Lisa in her home. Those are the odds. So this is what the psychic's saying. She died accidentally in her home, and her body was dumped. So she's playing the odds thinking, hey, I might be right. And then everyone's going to say, wow, she's one hell of a psychic.
Well, it's true.
And people pay these people.
But she shouldn't have said dying accidentally.
Well.
She should just say died in her home.
Well, whatever she said. I don't care what she said because I don't believe her, but...
And they're not going to find her body in an area that resembled a Kansas City casino.
Well, the very next day, detectives closed their outpost and returned back to their old offices. And they claimed the case would remain open, but they stated the need to turn their attention to other child abuse and neglect cases that had surfaced since Lisa's disappearance. But volunteers did search the closed casino for missing baby Lisa following these visions, but nothing was found, just as you predicted. So on the 28th of November, police followed up and did an extensive search of the area near the casino and found no clues of missing baby Lisa. But like you said, I guess they have to follow any and all leads.
Well, I think they do, as outlandish as they seem.
Yeah.
But I would automatically exclude anything that's testimony from a psychic, because they're just full of shit.
Well, I know we believe that, but there are cases where...
No. Don't go saying that to me.
Well, I think there are some cases where it works, and I don't know why. I think there's another explanation.
I want you to name some then.
I don't know.
Okay.
But people do follow up with them.
I just think psychics are part of the parasites that prey on missing or deceased children.
But why do police consult them sometimes? They go out and consult them.
Because they have to.
Well, that seems silly. If there's no scientific basis for it being real.
But still, you have to investigate all possible sources. So that's.
But it's not possible, from what you're saying. So they're investigating a non-possible source.
No, they're investigating a tip.
Okay, and they have to investigate them all, I guess.
Yep, even if it seems weird.
It does to me. Now, on December 1st, Lisa's parents requested that supporters end a candlelight vigil that had been held on their lawn. Well, you can surmise that this wasn't taken well by the people organizing the vigil. No. They were not happy with this.
No, but I can see the parents' point of view.
Sure.
Right?
I can.
We're tired of this. You're doing this stuff, nothing's happening. Get off my lawn.
Well, the thing is that Lisa's grandmother told the Kansas City Star that the parents find the vigils troubling to the brothers, Lisa's half-brothers.
Well, and I think it's troubling to the parents.
Yeah, but I think it was probably a wrong move. It didn't look good for them to say that. Well, and they're already being looked at suspiciously.
All right.
So I think they probably should have let the vigils continue. But, on the other hand, they have the right to whatever they want to do.
No,
worry and grieve in their own way.
I don't have any problem with that. I do the same thing.
Well, I don't think it would be accepted well, though.
It might not be.
Right. Well, the family hoped to return to a sense of normalcy, Lisa's grandmother said, and the public was really put off by it. Some of the public said that it was odd that Lisa's family didn't want to participate in the vigils, which some people like to do that kind of thing. Other people don't find it helpful. They find it upsetting.
Exactly.
And I think that's okay. But I can see where the public wouldn't like that. So then the next day on December 2nd, this is when baby Lisa's case was featured on America's Most Wanted.
There we go.
And you're okay with that. Explain to me quickly what the difference is between being on Good Morning America and America's Most Wanted.
Sure. It's a whole different mindset.
Okay.
People are watching America's Most Wanted for different reasons than they're watching Today's Show or Good Morning America.
Okay.
And I think you're more likely to get information that's valuable from America's Most Wanted rather than the other shows.
I would agree that you might get more valuable information there, but to me that doesn't exclude doing other things.
Okay.
But we're not going to go there again. But host John Walsh ridiculed Lisa's parents on the show for not cooperating more with investigators. So that's a blow. He said they should cooperate with police fully. They should do all the media they can. So hear that? John Walsh disagrees with you. And they should remember one thing. If they had nothing to do with their daughter's disappearance, they need to be the face of baby Lisa.
Well, I don't think he's actually disagreeing with what I've stated.
He said you should do all the media. They should do all the media they can. I think that's a disagreement.
I don't take it that way.
Okay.
I think they should do everything they can to cooperate with the police. That might not include appearing on all these shows.
Okay. That's not what John Walsh said.
I know.
Okay.
But I'm going to stick with that because I'm with them.
So there are really no leads. So we're going to skip ahead to February 2012.
Oh, God, and they're going to be on Dr. Phil.
So in February 2012, Deborah and Jeremy appeared on the Dr. Phil show with their attorney. And they were questioned for being silent and refusing to speak about many of the aspects of Lisa's disappearance with the police and with Dr. Phil. So their attorney did most of the speaking for them. He spoke about the sightings of a man carrying a baby in a t-shirt and diaper in the 45-degree weather after midnight near the neighborhood. Then at around 2 a.m., another witness reported a similar sighting near a gas station a couple of miles from home. In all, there were 3 eyewitnesses, they said, to the man carrying the baby. Now, video footage had emerged which showed a man dressed in white leaving a wooded area to where baby Lisa vanished on the night she was reported missing. So these few clues seem to be all they have, and they keep coming forward with these same things. But there's really nothing new coming out. Because we've known this for months.
But they have enough stuff to suggest it was an abduction.
Well, and I think that's why the mother hasn't been arrested.
Yeah. So the discovery added weight to witness reports that there was a suspicious man holding a baby in that area in the early hours of October 4th.
Yes, and I believe that. I mean, you've got 3 eyewitnesses plus some video footage.
Right.
I believe it.
I think that's viable.
Absolutely, I think so too.
So the lawyer representing the couple, Joe Tacopina, claiming that police claims that a cadaver dog smelled the scent of a deceased body in their bedroom proved nothing.
Yeah, so he said there's absolutely not a stitch of evidence in this case that there was an accidental death caused by Deborah. So that was the theory with the cadaver dog, is that maybe something happened to Lisa in the bedroom and it was an accident and she tried to cover it up. Which I really find it hard to believe that someone who loves a baby is going to try and cover up their death. It's the same as with George Anthony when they said that Kaylee Anthony drowned and he tried to cover it up by dumping her body.
I agree with that.
That's nonsensical to me.
It's not an accidental death.
No.
I mean, if the cadaver dog's hit was real, it was an intentional death.
Right, I believe that too. Because I believe if something accidentally happened to Lisa, that the mother would have called 911.
Wouldn't you? Yeah.
Plus, she was so drunk. How could she have done this, perfect crime, disappearance, and nobody find anything?
Right.
She wouldn't have been sharp enough to pull all that off, even if she wanted to.
I wouldn't think.
So he was disputing that the dogs had smelled a deceased body. He said it was decomposing remains, which could include fecal matter from a diaper. So this is a real point of contention with many people. Can a cadaver dog mistake fecal matter for decomposition?
And my answer is no.
And I think you're pretty much right. You're like 95% right on that.
At least what the trainers and specialists in this field say.
Yeah, no, police said an FBI cadaver dog reacted to the scent of a dead person inside the home where she disappeared, and investigators also discovered soil in the backyard that had been recently disturbed or overturned. So the affidavit stated that Deborah made the statement she did not initially look for her baby behind the house because she was afraid of what she might find, and they thought that was suspicious. Now, what do you think about that comment?
I'd be suspicious.
That she said that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if somebody else did it, why would they bury the baby in the backyard?
Well, nobody's saying anyone buried the baby. There's some disturbed soil.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why would they do that? I mean, that's...
So you think that points to Lisa, that there was some disturbed soil in the backyard? It could, yeah.
It could.
So it could be like an attempt and then giving up on it,
Sure.
thinking of burying her and then changing her mind?
Yeah.
Okay, I agree. That could be possible.
They never found a body in the backyard, right?
Right. That would be really stupid.
Yeah.
But the affidavit also stated that an FBI cadaver dog taken into the house had indicated this positive hit, and that was right on the floor near the bed. Now, the FBI dogs, which are used at both disaster and crime scenes, they're trained specially to recognize the scent of decaying, decomposing human flesh. So there are specific chemicals, and I decided not to go into it because it would get very dry, but there are certain chemicals involved in this that have been isolated by the American Chemical Society when I read an article about that. So it's very specific.
And this is what the dogs are trained to pick up.
Yes, exactly.
So they're not going to be sniffing a dirty diaper and thinking that's a dead body.
Probably not.
Okay.
There's a very small chance.
Right.
So it could be the scent that they could find. They could find the scent of an actual body decomposing, or it could just be residual scents after the body's no longer there, which is what we're talking about in this case, and also with the case of Madeline McCann.
Yes.
Now, Dr. Edward David, a deputy chief medical examiner for the state of Maine, I was able to look up a handbook that he did with a co-author, and it's called the Cadaver Dog Handbook. And in this handbook it says that when a body is left in one spot for several hours, cells are left behind, they continue to decompose and create an odor, and that gives the dog scents to detect. Now, that can take anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours, and it varies depending on room temperature, skin to, fabric contact. There's a lot of little things that can change that time period. But it's not a long period of time.
No, because that's what I initially thought. If the cadaver dog had a hit, that it was too soon.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be.
No, but I still wonder why would she be sitting there for even 45 minutes if something had happened.
Right.
Although there's the idea that maybe Lisa was crying, Deborah picked her up, brought her back to bed with her, co-slept with her. She could have rolled over on her because she was so drunk, suffocated her, knocked her off the bed, and Lisa could have been laying there for a while.
Okay.
Now it's unlikely.
I can buy into that, except then what does she do with the body?
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. I could see that happening, but how would she hide Lisa's body that quickly and get away with it?
I know. But otherwise, I like that explanation.
Yeah. I still don't think that most mothers would do that. If you accidentally kill your child, are you really going to have the heart to try and hide your baby? You're going to be just so upset you're going to call 911. I really believe that. Although, women have killed their children, so it is possible.
I believe that too. Although she's still kind of drunk, her thinking might not have been correct.
Sure. It is possible.
But, we're going to talk about other possibilities.
Right. Well, okay, so also Dr. David said that trained dogs may fail to detect the smell of human decomposition about 30% of the time, so they can miss it, but they generally do not alert when nothing is there. So a false positive is more rare.
So they can have a false negative.
Yes.
But false positives are distinctly rare.
Yes.
So if they hit on someplace, it's very likely, 95% you said, over 95%.
Pretty much.
That there is a dead body there.
Yeah. Now, one exception that was mentioned is human waste, but I'm unable to confirm either way if a dirty diaper could cause a dog to alert. It seems pretty unlikely from what I've read, but I guess there is a small possibility.
Yeah, but then you're presupposing that there is a poop or a dirty diaper
exactly.
on that floor area where the dog hit.
And I would think a diaper is pretty waterproof, so unless something's coming out of the diaper or the inside of the diaper is touching the ground,
right,
it'd be pretty unlikely for any cells to be able to get through a disposable diaper.
Well, could. But
Yeah.
anyway. So according to the Search Dog Organization of North America, how's that? Human remains detection dogs are trained to specifically find the odor of decomposing human remains. They're trained to ignore live human scent, as in poops in the diaper, and animal scent, and only indicate on human remains. A well-trained dog is not likely to alert on traces of human waste, such as a site that may have held a dirty diaper.
Well, there you go.
So, but it's still not definite.
Not definite.
In the same handbook, these dogs are described as 95% or greater accurate.
Yeah, but there wasn't much time between when Deborah put Lisa to bed at 6:40 and the 911 call at 3:45. Well, that's like 6 or 7 hours.
There's enough time if we're going from 45 minutes to 2 hours where they could start detecting remains.
That's true. I think I initially was thinking it would have to be longer than that. That's a pretty short amount of time, actually.
Right. So what are the options for what happened to baby Lisa?
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk about.
Here we
because
go.
There are some different theories and options of what could have happened.
Well, certainly.
But none of them seem very likely. They're all kind of far-fetched, but something had to happen, obviously.
Yeah, she ain't there.
So we already said that Deborah could have accidentally killed her. But the big problem with that is, could she really hide her and not leave a trace when she's pretty much drunk? Now, let's say she only had 5 glasses of wine. Let's be really generous.
Okay.
Now, she has 5 glasses of wine between 7 and 10. Now, I know you don't know precisely, but about when would this start wearing off? When's the height of her drunkenness, and when is it starting to falter?
So, what, 7:30 to 10?
Yeah, so she'd finished, let's say she finished her 5th glass at 10:15.
Okay. So, it's at least an hour before you're starting to come off.
Well, that's not that long.
Well, but that's not saying that she's not intoxicated. So it's probably 4 to 5 hours before she's getting back to normal.
So when's her height of intoxication? If she's been drinking between 7 and 10.
So
Last drink at 10, 10:15.
9 to 11 would be her big areas.
The height of drunkenness.
Yeah.
Okay. So if she was accidentally killed by Deborah, then she may have been killed later. If she was abducted, she probably would have been abducted by 11:57 when the man was seen and the phone call was made.
Could be. How long was the neighbor there drinking with her? When was that, like 10:30?
Yeah, 7 to 10:30, I think was.
And that's when Deborah went to bed.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I think she'd probably been drinking right up until before then.
So that could work.
Right. So let's say she goes to bed at 10:30. Lisa wakes up at 1:30. It's been 3 hours. She could be sobering by then.
She could be.
But maybe she's still a little drunk. She doesn't want to deal with trying to settle her down and retuck her, so she brings her back to bed, which she was probably okay with because she's co-sleeping with the boys.
Right.
So she does that. The accidental death occurs, let's say. She wakes up at like 2:30 and sees that her daughter's dead on that spot on the floor.
Okay.
She'd probably be sober enough to hide it if that's what she wanted to do.
She probably would be.
Would she be sober enough to go to where would she go? What would she do with her?
Where did she hide it?
Yeah.
That's it.
I don't know, because there were a lot of searches. She couldn't have gone too far.
No.
Because she's back in bed asleep.
So I'm not liking this.
Yeah, so that doesn't seem very likely.
No.
So what are other options of what happened that night?
Well, same thing, except she did it intentionally. She was drunk.
Yeah, let's say she's in a drunken rage. Lisa won't stop crying. But how's she going to do that without the boys hearing?
Right. And we're back to the same thing, whether she was drunk or not drunk, intentionally or unintentionally, what'd she do with the body?
Right.
So we're left there.
Well, what'd she do with the body, and also, what about the boys?
Right.
I mean, they would have been awake until 10:30, I think. But I guess the thing would be that baby Lisa would have to wake up in the middle of the night, and Deborah would have to have a rage, and that doesn't seem likely. I mean, from the videos and from what her friends say, she seemed like a loving mother.
No, I'm not buying into that.
No, I mean, a 10-month-old doesn't really get you that angry.
Nope.
A 10-month-old can always be put in the crib and you can walk away if you're starting to feel, the stress.
Even if they're crying.
Yeah, you can let them cry.
Right.
Okay, so many people have referred to Deborah lying about being drunk initially as a sign of her guilt. Now, I'm not sure about that because I could see that you might lie about the drinking just because it's going to make you look bad.
Well, yeah.
I mean, on the other hand...
I'm not going to criticize her for that. And whether she had 2 drinks or 5 drinks or 10 drinks, I don't think that's germane to the argument.
Well, on the other hand, if you're really worried that your child's missing, are you really going to care how you look? Maybe you're going to tell the truth because that's the best way to find your daughter. So that would be the other side to that.
I think the overriding thing would be, I'm not going to say anything about drinking all that wine because I don't want people to think I was a drunk.
Yeah, because the guilt's probably already kicking in. If you're a normal mother, that guilt kicks in quickly.
So I'm not saying nothing about that.
Well, another suspicious thing that Deborah did, though, is that she claimed to have checked on Lisa at 10:30 before she went to bed, and then later she admitted that she couldn't remember if she checked on her or not. Do you think that makes her more suspicious?
No. I mean, again, she had a bunch of wine.
Yes.
And she crawled into bed.
And she didn't want to admit that she couldn't remember.
Yeah.
And I say it goes to her benefit to recognize that she did say the truth later. When they're looking for Lisa, they don't find her. She says, well, I have to admit that I don't remember if I checked on her at 10:30. So she didn't have to admit that if she was someone who had things to hide.
Right.
So that, to me, makes her look less guilty.
I think so.
Now, what about the witnesses who saw a man carrying a baby that night? That really leads me to believe that Lisa was abducted. And when I think about that, I really lean away from Deborah doing anything, and I head towards the abduction theory.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the simplest explanation is that Deborah was involved.
I don't know how simple that is, though. We just tried to come up with a scenario.
The next simplest thing is that the baby was taken.
Yes, and taken for what reason?
Well,
what are the reasons someone would take a 10-month-old?
You have a nut who's abducting kids anyway. You have somebody who's abducting a child to provide for parents that want a child.
Right. Maybe selling a child to parents who want a child.
Sure.
Now, could Jersey have abducted Lisa? To me, he seems like the best guy for the job. And he was a suspicious character, but then on the other hand, the police don't seem interested in him as a suspect. So
I know, but I'm not sure why.
I don't know either, because it was really odd that he took Mary's dog that day and took the dog. I mean, that's weird. I know it's no big deal, but it's weird.
It's weird, but I don't know if that means anything.
Well, it means that he's willing to take things.
Well, we've known that.
Live things.
He's known for petty theft.
Right, but he wouldn't have taken the dog to benefit in any way. It's just kind of like he did it as something to do.
All right.
I don't know. It's just weird. Now, Megan and Jersey frequently walked through the woods to the townhouses. Deborah and Jeremy had no connection to Megan, so it didn't make any sense that Deborah would have called Megan. So that makes me think of Jersey.
Jersey could have called Megan if he had stolen his cell phones.
Exactly.
While he was kidnapping the child.
Right, but it really could have been anyone that knew Megan.
Yeah.
Could have been someone that didn't like Megan and wanted to set her up.
Right. And then there's maybe somebody wanted a baby, and they hired Jersey to help.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is a little far-fetched.
That's far-fetched, because what are you going to do once you get the baby? You're going to have to go far away, or people are going to say, where'd you get this?
Well, and how do they know Jersey? anyway. He's this kind of derelict person.
Well, that's what makes me wonder. Maybe he was just misguided and thought, I'll steal a baby and I'll be able to sell her for money. But then he has the baby, and there's no, how do you find someone to buy a baby? So he ends up killing Lisa in order to hide his crime.
Okay.
I mean, weird things like that have happened.
Yeah, I'm just not sure why he would abduct a baby if he didn't have a market for the baby.
Well, because maybe he's not super sharp, super smart about things.
No thanks.
Okay, well, these are the possibilities.
I know. I think he's smart enough to recognize that he could take a baby and sell it.
Yeah, but you have to have certain connections to do something like that.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying. He didn't do that just on a speculation that he could find somebody to buy the baby.
Right. What if he stole the baby to give to Megan to win her back?
Yeah. Okay.
But Megan
Does Megan have a baby?
No.
All right.
And she doesn't seem to know anything about it.
There you go.
But what if he stole the baby and accidentally killed the baby on the way to Megan's?
Well, then you'd have to hide the baby's body.
Yes, which someone must have done. Either she's alive or she's hidden dead somewhere.
Yeah.
It has to be one or the other. So someone may have hidden her body. I mean, she's small. It could happen.
It sure could.
It sure could. So, interestingly, the phones were tracked by cell phone towers, and they never went any further from Lisa's home than a third of a mile. So they were kept in the same area.
That's interesting.
So if someone stole the baby in the phones and took the baby away to raise her somewhere, why did the phones not get any farther? I guess they could have dumped them. But then I'm also not sure about the cell phone tower hits. I mean, we've seen with other cases where they're not all that accurate.
Well, okay. But you could also say that Deborah was involved and she called the cell phone, Megan's cell phone, for an alibi or something.
But where would she even get Megan's phone number? Well, it had never been called from that phone before.
That's true. Okay, I retract all that.
Okay. So Jersey or another stranger could have taken Lisa with the intention of selling her. If Lisa was abducted, Deborah's still going to be judged and blamed for her drinking that night, because maybe if she wasn't drunk, she could have heard the break-in and the abduction. And so if she didn't have anything to do with it, I feel really bad for her, because she's lost her daughter, which is a horrible tragedy, and then she's being victimized again by being vilified by her neighbors, the community, the media. So if Deborah's not guilty, I feel bad for her.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel bad for her anyway that she lost her daughter, of course, but this is like even worse.
Then you're thinking, why would somebody steal the cell phones and check the voicemail?
Yeah, so the voicemail. That was something we were going to go over. Well, I think the police felt that checking the voicemail was a sign that Deborah had the phone. But, like I said earlier, what if someone was checking to see if there'd been any calls to the phones about the abduction?
I mean, to me, that doesn't go either way. I mean, it doesn't indicate to me that she still had the phone.
Right.
And it could be that somebody else had the phone.
Yeah, so to me, this doesn't really...
No, that doesn't help me.
Doesn't point to anybody.
No.
Now, what about the dumpster fire? I know you said it could just be a coincidence, but I've thought some other things about it. Maybe it was a distraction. So if someone had the baby and was trying to get away with something, the fire could have been set to distract the police.
When was the dumpster fire?
It was like at 2-something in the morning.
The same night.
The same night in the townhouse parking lot where Megan lived.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, it could be a distraction. What else could it be?
Coincidental. Or
could be a coincidence, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
It could be to destroy evidence, too.
But evidence wasn't destroyed. They found charred stuff. They found some clothing that proved not to be baby Lisa's.
Well, there could have been something destroyed in there. I mean, obviously it couldn't be her body. Couldn't be something that's that hard to...
It couldn't have been, but
But like a piece of paper or something could have been destroyed.
If clothing survived...
Yeah.
I don't know what else would have not survived. I think you're stretching here.
So you think the dumpster fire is completely a coincidence?
I don't look at the dumpster fire as being helpful.
Well, I think it definitely could have been set as a distraction, though. I'm not saying it was, but it could have been.
All right.
So who do we like for this crime? Where is Lisa?
Okay. So number one, My simple explanation is that the mother was involved.
Okay, and what did she do with Lisa?
She got rid of the body. My second explanation is that the baby was abducted. I don't know by whom.
Right. Maybe it was
I
just...
think there's enough stuff going on that the baby could have been abducted.
Maybe it was just a stranger abduction, someone that had been watching the place.
Maybe.
I mean,
I have a tough time with these stranger abductions.
Well, they're rare, but they do happen.
Well, yeah, okay, they do happen. But the odds of a stranger coming upon a house, going in and finding a mother passed out, and stealing a baby.
Well, no, I'm saying maybe a stranger that had been casing the place. Maybe this was really a beautiful baby.
Well, even if he's casing the place, how does he know that Deborah's going to be passed out and drunk?
Well, she's sitting on the porch drinking.
Well, so?
So they could see that if they're casing the place.
You're stretching, baby.
Well, I don't know. There has to be something that happened to her. So you say I'm stretching, but it has to be one of these things.
Well, I like the abduction as an alternative to mother killing the baby.
So you're leaning towards Deborah being responsible still?
Whether it's accidentally or non-accidentally. I think that's the most likely. But if it was an abduction, it was somebody who knew what was going on.
Yes, I agree with that. It had to be.
And not just a stranger happenstance abduction.
Probably not. It would probably have to be someone who had some idea about the house.
Like Jersey.
Yes.
So, that's my guesses. Either Mom did it or Jersey did it.
Okay. Well, I could see someone maybe seeing Lisa at the store or about town and saying, that's a beautiful baby, wanting to take the baby for some reason or another, someone who wants a baby, and actually starting to stalk the house and getting some kind of idea about what's going on there and taking her.
That's a lot of presuppositions.
I know, and statistics tell us that it probably was the mother.
Right.
They do. Plus the cadaver dogs, that's a bit of evidence that's hard to overlook for me.
Yeah, I'm going to go with them.
Because they are objective. They have no dog in the race.
That's bad. I can't believe you stooped that low to put that horrible pun in there.
It's a nice pun. Okay. Well, it's really sad. It's been about 6 years now, and they're really no closer than they were in the beginning.
No, this is going to be one of those unsolved things, unless somebody fesses up. It reminds me of the Ayla Reynolds case here in Maine.
Yes, right.
That you're pretty sure that the father was involved, but you don't have evidence.
Yeah, and kind of like the Madeline McCann case, too. I kind of feel like the parents were involved.
Same thing.
But it's really hard to prove it.
It is. So unless somebody rats somebody out, I don't think you're going to find an answer.
No. But for me, I like to think that she was abducted by a couple that wanted a baby and she's alive and well.
Okay.
That's the better thing to think.
That's a good dream world to live in.
It sure is. So if you have any information on baby Lisa, you can call 1-800-THE-LOST. That's 1-800-843-5678. And hopefully help Lisa get back home if she's out there somewhere. She needs to get home to her family.
She sure does.
Yep. So thanks for the discussion, Dick. It was lengthy. There's a lot of details here, and I wish we could have come to a better conclusion.
Well, I do too. But I don't know that we got any information that's different.
Yep. Okay, well, we better get to feedback. We've been talking a long time. Before we go to feedback, I'd just like to do a little bit of self-promotion on our Team Tie Grabber. If you join Team Tie Grabber, you get a gift from us, and more importantly, you get access to our members-only episodes of True Crime Brewery. Now, we started doing this in March, so we're accumulating quite a number of episodes now. We have an episode on Diane Downs. We have an episode on the recent case of Baby Doe in Massachusetts. We also have a case on the Kissel brothers and on Bart Whitaker, who was the young man who pretended to be in college and set up his whole family to be murdered. Now we're in the midst of doing our series on the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. So what we do is we have 4 episodes for that. We did the first one, which we called Prelude to Murder, where we went over the relationship of O.J. Simpson and Nicole Brown. We went over who Ron Goldman was as a person and his family, and the events leading up to that horrible murder in 1994. Now, in our episode 2, which is coming out this week, we talk about the actual murder and the events after the murder that led up to the trial. So we start with the night of the killings, and we go on to the arrest of O.J. Simpson, his interrogation, the famous Bronco accompaniment, and to the trial. The setup of the lawyers who he hires, Marcia Clark getting ready to take on the case, and we're all set up to do the trial, which will be our 3rd episode. And then in the 4th episode, we're going to deal with the aftermath of the trial of the century, talk a little bit about what's going on now with O.J. Simpson being paroled. And we're going to talk with Adam, our tour guide from Brentwood, who's going to talk about the people that go on the tour. He calls it the O.J. Tour, where they go to the site where Nicole and Ron were killed. They go to O.J.'s Rockingham estate, and they go to all the areas, the school where the dance recital was, the spot of the Mezzaluna restaurant, and he has a lot of great stories. I mean, he's been dealing with this case since he was a child in the 90s. He's been fascinated with it, and he took over this tour, and he really has a lot of information on the community and on how it affected the community in the 90s up until now. If you haven't joined Team Tie Grabber, go ahead and join. If you like this show, because the episodes are the same. They're full length, but they don't have any ads and none of this self-promotion that you have to listen to now. We have an announcement. Tie Grabber's new podcast, Watching ID, is premiering later this week. So Watching ID is a podcast hosted by us, right?
Right.
Where we pick a show on the Investigation Discovery Network, and we discuss the episode and the featured crime that's in the episode.
Yeah, we've watched those ID things quite a bit.
We do, and this is something I've wanted to do for a while.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. And so, these first episodes, or the first series we're going to cover, sound pretty interesting.
Yeah, the first few episodes are going to feature our impressions on the new ID series, Gone, which is on Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And Watching ID episodes, I'm going to release those on Thursdays. So I hope our True Crime Brewery listeners will check it out. We'll be doing a recap before our in-depth discussions on these episodes, so even if you don't watch the TV show, you can enjoy the podcast.
Of course.
Because it'll be like a little mini true crime podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Although I think we'll probably critique the people that do interviews, the narrator, maybe even, some of the people who are participating in the investigation.
Oh, I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
We're not just going to give a verbatim report of the episode. We're going to have some of our impressions and ideas thrown in there, too.
Right. Maybe even a little further research on the case, because, of course, this is going to be about people who've gone missing.
Right.
Which is one of the more interesting things, I think.
Those are fascinating cases, aren't they?
They are. So, check it out. It's called Watching ID. It's by Tie Grabber Podcasts. And you should see it on iTunes and wherever you listen to podcasts later this week.
We'll get on that.
All right. It's going to be fun. So let's have a little music, Dick, and we'll do our feedback.
Let's go.
Okay. Welcome to Feedback. So this is a long episode, so I'm just going to have us do 2 pieces of feedback today.
Just a couple.
Yep. So the first one is an email that I got from Raphael, and this is about our recent episode, Natural Born Killers, about the Lily Lid killings. So let's read Raphael's letter. It says, "Hi, Jill and Dick. In the latest episode, Natural Born Killers, Jill at one point asks about an act by someone. Is it evil? The question is understood, however, the use of the term evil in the U.S. is always a little difficult for me as a Dutchman. I think it goes the same for many Europeans. The term evil has religious connotations for us. We have similar words for callousness, sadistic, cruel, heartless, malicious, etc., yet nothing for evil, really, only in the religious sense of the word. Trying to understand your meaning better, I did a little research on the word evil. Turns out it's a Germanic word, and there's a still existing German word stemming from the same root and meaning, the German word über. It still contains the original meaning, beyond, above, outside, over, and above, like Nietzsche's Übermensch. Did I pronounce that right?
You did.
The beyond man, the transcended man. Now we can easily see the original meaning of the word evil, harmful behavior that goes beyond all reason or justification. It can't be understood by normal, empathetic people with a functioning conscience. There's no defense or excuse. It's beyond. It's uber or evil. Looking at it like this, we come to an interesting dilemma we can see examples of each day. The more research into human behavior and consequent understanding, the less, strictly speaking, the term evil still applies. The motivations behind these heinous crimes slowly come within our grasp at a rational, analytical level at least. So we see more emphasis being placed on the choice of the perpetrator made. I listen to many true crime shows, and it's a recurring theme. Most of these perpetrators of extreme crimes have had an awful, loveless, and traumatic childhood, and the answer is always the same. So have countless of other people, and they don't become murderers. Maybe one could say we've made the choice itself, the evil act. I can kind of see that.
Yes, I can too.
These questions won't become easier in the future, I think. The notion of free will itself hasn't been resolved, but put on hold for the time being. And what if we come to a point we can do stem cell therapy on a psychopath and literally have him grow a conscience? Was he evil or just handicapped? That's a fascinating sentence there. I'd never thought of that.
Well, we get back to the age-old debate on nature versus nurture.
Absolutely. But if it's purely nature, maybe it is a handicap or an illness.
I don't think it is strictly nature.
Okay, but what if it was?
Well, if it was, and you can identify the genetic defect, you could help.
I know, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So Raphael concludes, my own personal solution for all these questions I can answer is this. A society has the right and obligation to protect itself, and thus to, from their midst, remove and contain threats. I think it's a reasonable and safe position. All the best, Raphael. So it was kind of long, but I thought it was interesting.
Well,
that's kind of looking at it from a way I haven't looked at it completely before.
Well, yes and no. I think we would agree with his last statement that the people that exhibit these tendencies be kept separate from society.
Yes, I think he's correct there.
Right. And the other thing, I'm not sure I can equate the word Uber with evil.
Well, you speak German to a certain extent, so you would know better than I.
Yeah, I just don't know.
Well, he was explaining that it's outside, right? Because Uber means...
above. Well, to me, Uber always meant above, or on top of.
Okay, but I think it has more meanings from what he was saying.
That's what he says.
Yes.
And he probably knows because he's Dutch.
Yeah.
Which is a very close language to German.
Right.
But,
and it sounds like he's looked into it pretty extensively.
Yeah, I'm just not sure.
Okay.
But I certainly would agree with his last statements.
Yes, me too.
Okay.
I always like to hear how other people perceive these crimes, and because you always get a different view. Like, I get my own tunnel sometimes, and it's great to have the blinders taken off and see some other directions.
No, I like to hear, particularly from other cultures that don't view things the same way as Americans do.
Exactly. Yes. I mean, I do equate the word evil with religion to a certain extent.
Yeah.
It's not really a scientific word in any way.
Nope.
No. Okay, so what have you got? You have one piece of feedback for us.
One piece. This is from Holly, who's a big fan from Sydney, Australia. Or should I say Australia?
Okay.
So she says, Dear Jill and Dick, thank you for all your wonderful podcasts. I really like how you both are so respectful of each other's opinions, even when they vary, and are never critical of one another.
Okay, you don't have to read the praise, just read the
Oh,
recommendations.
I like the praise.
Okay.
So she says, I know you must be swamped with podcast requests because I'm eliminating the rest of the praise.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I know you must be swamped with podcast requests, but I feel I must at least ask. The first case is that of Janelle Potter, where she posed as a CIA agent and tricked her parents into murdering a couple in Tennessee. Now that sounds really interesting.
It does.
I mean, how do you trick your parents into killing somebody?
This is a very twisted case. It has like catfishing.
Oh, let's do it.
So there's a lot of misleading. It's kind of like Web of Lies on ID. It's got lots of twists like that. It might have even been an episode on Web of Lies now that I think about it.
I'm going to have to look into that.
Yeah.
I like that premise. The other suggestion is the contract killing of Carolyn Matthews by her husband Kevin and Kevin's lover Michelle Burgess. It is a truly twisted story which happened here in Australia. All right. There's even a book about it called Dead by Friday, and it makes you wonder about the sordid lives of some people.
Well, I like the idea of doing an Australian crime because a lot of our, like 80% of our listeners are in the U.S., so it might be new to most of our listeners.
Right, but we also have a substantial amount of Australian listeners.
Well, considering we're here, we do have quite a few.
Yeah.
But the majority are in the U.S.
So, I like that idea.
Yeah, now this was a brutal crime. The one of Carolyn Matthews. Really heartless. I mean, talk about evil. I will definitely look into that.
So let's look into that. But I've already decided we're going to do the first one.
Janelle?
The Janelle Potter case. That sounds like a fascinating case. I want to see how you convince your parents to kill somebody.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I'm looking into that.
All right. Well, thank you, Holly. Those are some good recommendations.
Yeah.
And we do have a list of recommendations, but when one hits one of us like that, like this one seems to have really intrigued Dick, it gets moved ahead in the list.
We're going to fast track you, Holly.
Yeah. Okay. So that's all I have for feedback because it's a long episode.
Yeah, we've been here a couple hours. Let's pack it in.
Yeah, so we'll save the rest of the feedback for later. Now, for Team Tie Grabber members or people thinking they might join, we do have the second in the OJ series coming out later this week. Also, I'd like to ask you, if you're not already, to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. The Twitter handle is @TieGrabberPods. And also, if you haven't given us a rating, if you like the show, we'd love to get a 5-star rating on iTunes. And I put links in the show notes where it'll take you right to iTunes to do that. There's also a link to our Facebook page. And we also have our True Crime Brewery fan discussion page you can join. Just go on there and you'll get approved pretty early on. It's pretty easy. And there's a lot of great discussions going on there by our listeners. And I try and hop in there and contribute or at least kind of stalk it a little bit once in a while. And I'd like to thank everyone for listening. That wraps it up this week. And we'll be back with another crime next week.
We'll be there. We'll see you at the quiet end.
That's right.
Goodbye.